June 15th, competition between martyrs. Yes, I know your spouse is an alcoholic, but my son is an alcoholic, and that's different. That's worse. My pain is greater than yours. What an easy trap that can be for us. We are out to show others how victimized we have been, how much we hurt, how unfair life is, and what a tremendous martyr we are. And we won't be happy until we do. We don't need to prove our pain and suffering to anyone. We know we have been in pain. We know we have suffered. Most of us have been legitimately victimized. Many of us have had difficult, painful lessons to learn. The goal in recovery is not to show others how much we hurt or have hurt. The goal is to stop our pain and to share the solution with others. If someone begins trying to prove to us how much he or she hurts, we can simply say, "It sounds like you've been hurt." Maybe all that person is looking for is validation of his or her pain. If we find ourselves trying to prove to someone how much we've been hurt, or if we try to top someone else's pain, we may want to stop and figure out what's going on. Do we need to recognize how much we've hurt or are hurting? There's no particular award or reward for suffering, as many of us tricked ourselves into believing in the height of our codependency. The reward is learning to stop the pain and move into joy, peace, and fulfillment. That is the gift of recovery, and it is equally available to each of us, even if our pain was greater or less than someone else's. God, help me be grateful for all my lessons, even the ones that caused me the most pain and suffering. Help me learn what I need to learn, so I can stop the pain in my life. Help me focus on the goal of recovery rather than the pain that motivated me into it. I'm Herb the Addictaholic. This is the language of letting go. And, one-upper syndrome, especially when it comes to pain and suffering. I've always kind of tripped on that myself. But I realize that I do use the one-upper of my suffering on certain occasions. And that would be like, someone comes into work, they missed the day before, and they're like, "Oh, I had this and that going on in my car and blah, blah, blah." And then I'm like, and I usually don't even refer to myself. I'll refer to somebody else that I know, maybe not by name, but like, well, I know somebody that, their car broke down and they took an Uber, or they called somebody who was on the job and got a ride, or they hopped on a bus and rode a skateboard. And that's no lie. Like, I know somebody that would get on a bus and take a skateboard to get their butts to work, and they had no excuses, and they were excited and they felt grateful to have a job, and so they would show up with a smile on their face, even though they were going through some stuff. Mom was an addict, and they lived like an hour and a half away, so it was like a 3-hour bus ride. And so when I hear someone who lives 10 minutes away talking about, "Oh, my car, and I overslept, or I stayed up too late last night drinking," I tend to like, you think you're suffering? Let's think about what's really going on in the world. And even though it's not looking for validation of my own suffering, and even though, it's coming from a place of, comparison and concern and trying to get this person to understand, I realize it's still manipulative. It's still me trying to control a situation and change somebody's perspective. And that might not be a very good approach either. So trying to one-up somebody else's suffering, even if I'm not using my own suffering, is probably still not the best approach, and reading this reading today, it made me think of that. So I will contemplate how I approach that situation in the future. But I definitely don't like to tell somebody I'm suffering more than you, or, go into a place and be like, "Oh, my life is just so hard. Oh, listen to all the things I have to deal with," because I know that everybody has stuff to deal with, even those who are, quote unquote privileged. They have all the money in the world. Yeah, but where are their parents? Are their parents busy making that money or managing that money, or on a vacation while they're at home or in boarding school? Do they have real friends, or are they just trying to please everyone because the parents aren't around? I mean, there's so many avenues, so many different perspectives, so many lenses that people look through in this world. Like, you can't judge one person by all of that, so who's to say who's suffering more? Somebody in a privileged situation might feel the same amount of suffering from an event that I might not feel any suffering, but then I suffer at an event that they might not feel any suffering at. So really, it's kind of subjective. And so to compare is apples to, you know, nuts and bolts. It's not even oranges. It's like, you never know. It's completely different. And you know, I try not to one up people in anything, because I don't like to break people down. I like to build people up, you know, and I'll find better ways to do that going into the future. Thank you guys for coming out. I hope to see you tomorrow. Keep coming back. It works if you work it.